Okay, let's unpack a scenario that I think is going to feel uncomfortably familiar to a lot of people listening.
Hmm.
It is Sunday night. You're a parent in the modern world, and let's say the 2026-2027 school year is looming.
Right.
You are looking at your calendar, you're looking at your kids, and you just feel that specific heavy pit in your stomach.
You feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard
A
place.
hard place, exactly. It's this classic paradox of modern parenting.
It is. We have more options than ever before,
Mm.
and yet somehow we feel more trapped.
Yes. On one side, you have the traditional school system, the, factory model.
The four walls model, sure.
It's rigid, it demands you surrender your schedule to the institution, and honestly, it often feels so impersonal.
Like you're just feeding your child into a machine and hoping for the best on the other side.
Right. But then you look at the alternative. You look at homeschooling, the do-it-yourself approach.
And that sounds great in theory. Freedom, customization.
But emotionally, it is absolutely terrifying for most people. The idea of being solely responsible for every lesson plan, every single grade.
Oh, it's an immense cognitive load. It's not just teaching. You're the administrator.
It's overwhelming. You suddenly have to be a PhD in phonics and calculus while also being a parent, while also, probably working a job.
And that is the friction point we see in the data constantly.
Hmm.
Parents crave that involvement. They want it. But they physically and mentally just cannot carry the full weight.
It's a recipe for burnout.
Total burnout.
So you're stuck, or at least it feels like a binary choice that leaves you stuck. But today, we are looking at something different, a third way, if you will.
And that is exactly why we are talking about Res Novae Academy.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into their structural breakdown for the upcoming 2026-2027 school year.
Mm-hmm.
And we aren't just looking at this as a school review, we are analyzing it as a case study in solving that exact dilemma.
Right.
We've got their partnership documentation, their curriculum maps, their financial breakdown. And I have to say, this is not what I expected when I saw the words private school.
No, it's pretty distinct.
Hmm.
They're positioning themselves not as a place you send your kids, but as a structure to support a certain lifestyle.
So our mission today is to figure out if this actually works. How do you balance the freedom of home learning with, the legitimacy of a school?
And we have to scrutinize that claim. Fully accredited private school. Because accredited is a heavy word.
It does a lot of heavy lifting.
It is the anchor of their whole value proposition. Without that word, this conversation is completely different.
So let's start there. Because if you look at the landscape of alternative education co-ops, learning pods, the terminology is, well, it's a mess.
It's very murky. Usually when people hear partnership or hybrid, they think of a homeschool co-op.
Right. We meet in a church basement once a week, and a parent who likes bugs teaches biology for an hour.
Exactly. It's informal, it's community-led, which has value, but it is not institutional. You're not getting an official-looking transcript.
No mommy grades.
No mommy grades. And this is the misconception Res Novae seems really keen to correct. They stated explicitly, we are not an alternative to school. We are a legitimate private school.
Okay, so what does accreditation actually do? Because I think for a lot of people, it just sounds like bureaucracy.
It is bureaucracy, but it's bureaucracy that translates directly into value.
How so?
When a school is accredited, it means an external body has audited them. Their academic standards, their teacher qualifications, all of it.
So the transcripts they produce are like legal documents.
They hold weight in the broader world. That's the key.
Which is the massive pain point for homeschoolers, isn't it? You hit high school and suddenly you're waking up at 3 a.m. worrying.
Will a university actually accept this diploma I printed on my inkjet printer?
Exactly. Or the military, or a trade school. Accreditation creates transferability.
But what's fascinating here is how they're using that institutional validity, that stamp of approval, to support a non-institutional lifestyle.
They're flipping the script. Usually to get the stamp, you have to play by all the institutional rules.
Be in the seat for 7 hours, raise your hand to go to the bathroom, yeah.
They're saying, we'll handle the standards and the paperwork. You handle the human element.
Which brings us to their partnership philosophy.
Right. They describe the problem as families being stretched thin.
Which is pretty much the defining characteristic of the 2020s.
It really is.
And their solution is this division of labor. The school provides the professional instruction, the planning, the grading, the heavy lifting.
And the parents, what's their role?
The parents provide the values, the insight, the day-to-day connection. They call it walking alongside families.
So it's not a handoff. It's not, here is my child, please return them in 18 years.
Exactly. But it also isn't abandoning the parent to figure it all out alone.
It's like you're outsourcing the stress, but keeping the relationship.
That is the perfect way to frame it. You're outsourcing the administrative burden, but you're keeping the relational part.
Okay, conceptually, I am on board. That sounds great. But I want to get into the gears of this machine. What are these kids actually doing on a Tuesday morning?
Let's look at the K-8 program first.
They use a mastery-based approach. Now, I see this term, but for the listener, what's the actual difference between mastery and what normal schools do?
So most traditional schools use what's called a spiral method.
The spiral.
Right. The idea is you touch on a topic, let's say fractions. You do it for a week, then you move on. You'll spiral back to it next year.
Like painting a wall with really thin coats over and over?
In theory, yes.
Yeah.
But in practice, what often happens is a student doesn't quite get it the first time. The class moves on, though. So now the student has a gap.
And the gap just gets wider every year.
Until you hit a wall, usually in algebra.
Right.
Mastery-based flips this. It says, we are not moving on until you get this. And Res Novae has a very specific structure. They focus on one core skill per month.
Wait, one skill for a whole month. Doesn't that get tedious?
It sounds like it might, but think about the depth. Instead of jumping around, you spend all of October, say, purely on fractions. You look at it from every angle. You master it.
So you're building a foundation of concrete instead of quicksand.
Precisely. And that builds confidence. Nothing kills a kid's love of learning faster than feeling perpetually lost.
I see here they do the same thing with spelling. It's taught with grammar and reading, not just as a list of words.
That's another big shift. No more getting a random list of 20 words on Monday.
The Friday purge. I remember it well. I could spell Chihuahua on Friday and have no idea on Monday.
Right. They integrate it. It's about understanding the mechanics of the words, not just memorizing them.
Okay, speaking of mechanics, let's talk about the little ones. Pre-K and K. They highlight an Orton-Gillingham-aligned curriculum. Now, I know parents who pay a fortune for private tutors for this. Isn't it usually for, like, intervention?
Historically, yes. It was designed for students with dyslexia. But the modern science of reading shows that it's actually the most effective way for all children to learn to read.
So what is it actually doing in the brain?
It's a structured, multisensory approach. It basically breaks the English language down into its code. It explicitly teaches how the letters interact to form sounds.
So it's decoding, not guessing.
It is pure decoding. It gives the child the keys to the code of the language from day one.
That's a huge value add for a baseline curriculum. Okay, let's move on to the content nuggets for 2026-2027. They rotate these themes, right?
They do. The whole school focuses on one theme, which is great for families with kids in different grades.
So for science, K through 8 is looking at the stars, astronomy.
Earth, space, the universe. Which is perfect, right? You could literally walk into your backyard and participate.
It fits perfectly with their education happens everywhere model. You don't need a lab coat, you just need a dark sky.
And it sparks that primal curiosity. For history.
U.S. history and U.S. geography for K-12.
Right. But here's the interesting part. They're pairing that with music.
Yeah.
The focus is on American patriotic songs and influential musicians from U.S. history.
I love that. So you're not just reading a dry textbook about the Civil War. You're hearing the music the soldiers were singing.
It creates cultural literacy. It gives you the emotional backdrop of the history. And then art ties into those same historical periods. It's all very cohesive.
It feels curated, not like the hodgepodge a parent trying to do it alone might end up with.
That's the academic planning they promised. They align the vectors for you.
Now, I want to pivot to something that made me do a double take. I was reading the enrichment section for their on-site program, PE.
Right. You're thinking dodgeball, running laps.
Standard fare.
Yeah.
But at Res Novae, on-site PE includes karate classes.
Yes.
Like actual karate from a professional studio next door.
It's a brilliant use of community resources, but it's also a very specific philosophical choice.
How so? I mean, it just sounds cool.
Well, think about the difference between exercise and martial arts. Exercise is about burning calories. Martial arts is about discipline.
Controlled movement.
Exactly. It's about respect, focus, knowing where your body is in space. For a school that talks about building character, it's a very strategic choice.
It aligns perfectly. Okay, speaking of the real world, we need to talk about the older kids, the virtual high school program.
The course list is surprisingly practical.
Their goal is preparing students for adulthood, not just graduation. Which, let's be honest, is a distinction a lot of high schools miss completely.
Totally. High school is often just about playing the game of university admissions. This is about playing the game of life.
Look at this list. Project management.
That one stood out to me immediately.
I didn't learn project management until I was like 25 and drowning at work.
And yet, it's the fundamental skill of the modern world.
Yeah.
Planning a wedding, renovating a kitchen, organizing anything.
It's all resource allocation, timelines, execution.
Teaching a 16-year-old that is a cheat code for life.
It really is, and it pairs so well with the next one, consumer math.
Basically, financial literacy.
Why is this still considered alternative? Why are we still making kids learn abstract calculus they'll never use, but not how compound interest works?
It's just legacy. The system is slow to change. They do offer core math, Denison algebra, so the academic base is there, but they prioritize the math you'll actually use to survive.
And then the one that I think is the most radical inclusion, problem and conflict resolution.
This is the one that really signals they're doing something different.
Why? Don't kids just, learn this on the playground?
No. On the playground, they learn dominance or they learn avoidance.
That's a fair point.
We assume people learn this by osmosis, but just look at the adult world. Look at social media. Most adults are terrible at this.
We are.
So explicitly teaching a teenager how to listen, negotiate, find common ground, that is a soft skill that determines so much of your future success.
It all goes back to that idea of ownership. They're treating the student like the junior executive of their own life.
They still have the standard stuff, too. Analyzing literature, for example, which is American Lit to match the history focus. It's robust, but the flavor is distinctly practical.
Okay, so philosophy, curriculum, karate. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Economics.
Because when you hear private school, accredited, Orton Gillingham, you are bracing yourself for a tuition bill that looks like a car payment.
It can be astronomical, $20,000, $30,000, even $40,000 a year in some places.
But the tuition here is listed as a range of $2,500 to $6,500 per school year.
Which depends on if you're virtual or on-site.
Let's contextualize that. I mean, $6,500 isn't nothing, but in the world of private education.
It is aggressively affordable. That's disruptive pricing.
How is that possible?
Well, think about the overhead they don't have. No massive campus, no football stadium, no cafeteria staff. You aren't paying for the real estate.
You're paying for the software, not the hardware.
Exactly. You are paying for the professional instruction, the curriculum planning, the grading, the accreditation. You are paying for the mental load to be lifted off your shoulders.
That's the real ROI calculation, isn't it? If one parent has to quit their job to homeschool, that costs the family tens of thousands in lost wages.
Precisely. If this model allows a parent to maintain their career, or even just their sanity, that $6,500 becomes a very different value proposition.
It goes back to that partnership idea. You're paying for a partner.
You are. And for a lot of modern families, that trade-off money for time and expertise is the most valuable trade they can make.
So if we zoom out, what does this all mean? Res Novae is really an experiment in definition.
It's redefining the locus of control in education.
We started this talking about that binary choice, school versus home, and what they seem to be saying is that's a false choice.
They're proving that you can have institutional credibility, the accreditation, the transcripts, without the institutional confinement.
It's a shift from school being a place you go to school being a partnership you enter.
And that is a powerful distinction. Whether you have kids or not, this matters, because it's a shift in how society is starting to view learning.
Away from the factory model.
And toward a network model.
A network where the parents are nodes, the school is a node, the karate studio next door is a node.
And the student is the project manager of that network.
I love that image. Well, if this deep dive has sparked some curiosity for you, maybe you are that parent feeling the Sunday night dread. It is worth noting that enrollment for the 2026-2027 school year is limited.
These models fill up fast. They're small by design.
Right, so if you're interested, they have pre-registration available at resnovaeacademy.com.
It's definitely worth a look if you're searching for that third way.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought. We talked a lot today about education happening everywhere.
Yes, at the dinner table, in the backyard, in a dojo.
If that's true, if the classroom is just one small part of the whole equation, are we approaching a future where the classroom as we know it becomes the least important part of schooling?
And if so, how does that change the value of that diploma hanging on the wall? Is it about where you sat or about what you can do?
Something to chew on.